Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad that you could join us today. Annie and I have been working on this for a little while. Annie and I have been friends for a long time. And so we were talking about kind of charitable giving, how people could get more involved. And we decided that we would start by hosting a webinar just to get people a little bit more up to speed on how businesses can really use charitable giving to not only elevate your brand, but really boost your bottom line, because there are so many benefits to charitable giving. And a lot of times people don't think about it. We've also noticed that kind of coming out of COVID, there's a lot of people that are wanting to give, that want to get involved in the community, maybe don't know how to do it. And so wanted to take a chance to talk about how to actually create a giving strategy. And then we've got some really exciting opportunities that we're going to talk about at the end about kind of how you can do this with your own companies. So to get us started, for those that I don't know, my name is Elizabeth King. I have King PR and Marketing, and I've been in the community affairs space most of my career. I've worked both nonprofit and corporate before I started my own business, and charitable giving really is my very favorite thing. And so I'm always excited to have a chance to talk about this. When I was in corporate, that's where I met Annie, and she and I became friends. She is the Global Community Relations Director at TD Williamson and a CSR guru. And so she's got so much knowledge about giving, how to get companies involved, whether that's locally or on a worldwide scale, because her company has satellite offices all over the world. So we are really excited to be with you today to talk about this. So what we're going to start with is kind of the difference between charitable giving and corporate social responsibility, because I know a lot of people have heard both terms, and there's some overlap and there's some differences. We're going to talk about the impact of giving on your business, on your customers, and on your employees, and give you some stats around why this is such an important topic, and why this is so good for your business. We're going to get into the actual steps of how to create a giving strategy, and then we're going to talk about some implementation activities. We've got a small group today, so at any point, if you want to just ask questions, feel free, or you can wait until the end if what you prefer. But we're just really here to share information today. So here I threw in a couple of my favorite quotes into this presentation because there's so many great things. But this is one that I really loved. I believe social responsibility begins with a strong, competitive company. Only a healthy enterprise can improve and enrich the lives of people and their communities. And this is so very true, because unless you have a strong, healthy business, it's really hard to give back to the community. So really wanted to kind of give you that thought to kick off the presentation today. So let's talk about kind of the difference between charitable giving and corporate social responsibility. So charitable giving is really focused around promoting the common good, improving the quality of life. It's a lot of times talked about as philanthropy, whereas corporate social responsibility is a much bigger animal. It integrates social and environmental concerns into the company's business operations. So in addition to the philanthropy and charitable giving, there are other components to it and ways that you can make an impact on your employees, on a global scale, so many different ways. But to focus on charitable giving, and what we're really talking about today is giving of your time, talent, and treasure. So, obviously time can be volunteerism, it can be talent. We're talking about whether that's in-kind donations, it could be pro bono services, it could be serving on boards. There's many different ways that you can do pro bono services. And then treasure, and that really is when we're talking about monetary donations, be that sponsorships or employee matching. We'll get in a little bit more into that, what that might look like. So some examples of charitable giving, because it really does look different to every company. And that's the beauty of charitable giving, is that you can tailor it to be whatever you want it to be, as big or as small, as involved as you want to be. So these are monetary donations, in-kind donations, grants, volunteerism. That's a very big thing. Employee relief programs. I've seen such great things around this. So rather than having potlucks when you've got employees that are in need, it's more of a formal way that people can get support, and a very structured way to do it. Serving on nonprofit boards, or even creating your own giving program. Annie, do you want to talk a little bit about CSR and what that is?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Elizabeth. Oh gosh, we have somebody else waiting. That's exciting. What Elizabeth said is absolutely true. And really, just to make a point about this, charitable giving is not necessarily different from CSR. It's just really tying it back to the company and the company's mission and the company's bottom line. So if you really think about it that way, it's a lot easier. You don't have to, it's not as, it's not as confusing, I think. And I love the way that Elizabeth has all this laid out so nicely, that there are different ways that you can do that. It can be all of these things: environmentally, ethically, economically, and philanthropically. And hopefully we find a way to incorporate all those different things into who we are. I mean, I think that, like, for a company like ours, we're a small global company, a very small global company. And in fact, one of the reasons that Elizabeth and I got engaged in this conversation is that I have been attending a lot of different conferences, and it seems like we are always the smallest company represented. And it's exciting to me, though, because even though by far we are the smallest company represented, I started thinking about, well, what about all the other companies that are even smaller than we are? Where are they? Because they all want to give too. I know that because we work with a lot of small companies in my business. And I work personally with a lot of people who own their own businesses, and maybe they only have just a few employees, but they'd really love to get something going, something that's meaningful, that really attaches to not only their brand, but who they really feel like deep down it really resonates with each of the employees and who they are. So here are some big brands that I think that you all know these names, right? Again, these are some of the ones that I was seeing at some of these conferences, and I was like, "Oh, goodness gracious, y'all are, huge." I was telling Elizabeth that I went to a conference that was held by Boston College Center for Corporate Citizenship in the spring, and it was held in Minneapolis, and it was hosted by Target. And so I happened to sit down at a table with some of the Target VPs, and I was asking them, I said, "So, what are you guys doing? What are you struggling with? What kind of projects are you working on?" Guess what? They were working on the same kind of things that we were working on, but it was just a matter of scale. And, it was like, how do we engage our employees? How do we choose programs that are meaningful? How do we know what really the needs are in the community? How do we build relationships with nonprofits? And, I know DJ's here from Tulsa Area United Way, and I just wanted to say that, that's one way to do it, is just to really build that really strong relationship with the nonprofits and say, what is it that you really need? And here are some things that we really can give, whether it is money or time, or maybe you have like certain talents that you can give back that would really be meaningful, or maybe your company produces something that you can give back. Like, for example, my friend Lauren Sherry, who runs the Quick Trip Giving Program, even though they don't give grants to every nonprofit, they often give Quick Trip gift certificates, right? So for food certificates and stuff like that. So I will talk to a lot of nonprofits who say, I know they can't fund us, but it really does mean a lot when they can give us those certificates. So, you never know what you have that might be valuable to someone else. And it could be a skill, or it could be, it could be goods and services. So, I think creatively, build relationships are my two big pieces of advice.
Annie, I like when you told me that story about your umbrellas.
Oh, about the umbrellas. Oh, yes, indeed. Yeah. So that one was that was with one of our schools. Our partner school called us up and said, "Hey, we don't have school buses, and it's been raining for the last couple of weeks, and so our attendance is down because the kids walk to school. By any chance, do you guys have umbrellas?" Well, we did. We had like a whole box full of branded umbrellas that we bought for something or another. I can't remember what. And so, of course, we rushed them right down to the school. They were so happy. And they sent us all these pictures of kids walking to school, holding their umbrellas, dancing in the rain. Gene Kelly would have been proud. It was really a great moment. It was just so neat to see that something that was so small that we didn't even know would be that useful was much more useful to the kids than it was as the promotional item that we intended it to be for employees.
So yeah, there's so many different ways that you can get involved with nonprofit organizations, even sometimes ways that you don't even expect. So another favorite quote of mine. So creating a strong business and building a better world are not conflicting goals. They're both essential ingredients for long-term success. So let's talk a little bit about the impact of giving on your business. So if you're looking at it holistically, charitable giving, I mean, it obviously demonstrates your company leadership within the community. But from a branding perspective, it builds customer loyalty, increases workforce attraction. Internally, it reduces employee churn and improves productivity. And there are so many opportunities to enhance brand awareness by incorporating your charitable giving efforts into your marketing efforts. So there's a lot of different ways that it can help, but want to give you some actual numbers that you can take away. So 90% of consumers worldwide are likely to switch to brands supporting a good cause. You find now more than ever, especially with some of the younger demographics, they are actively looking for companies that share their values. And one of my favorite things is 55% of consumers are willing to pay extra for products and services that contribute to positive change. That's huge. If you think about, over 50% of consumers are willing to spend more money with your company because they know you're doing good. That's pretty darn good for your bottom line. But, again, 77% of consumers are motivated to purchase from companies that are committed to making the world a better place. So many people are looking to build a connection with the companies where they work and do business. And so charitable giving is an important component of that.
And Elizabeth, I think that that is so true as far as that whole relationship piece that we were talking about. And I think that sometimes, and I know this is not only true of our consumers, but it's also, our customers, but it's also true of our suppliers, other companies that we work with. It's just, it's a part of that. How can we be part of something bigger? And if our values are aligned and we're doing something bigger together, it's even better. So it really fosters that business relationship as well as that just the relationship in general. So,
well, there's a huge impact that community giving has on your own employees. So 93% of employees believe that companies must lead with purpose. So your employees are actually actively looking for companies that they want to be engaged with, that are actively working in the community. And 70% of employees say they would not work for a company without a strong purpose. This really shows up in this last statistic that 50%, it's the reduction, basically it reduces churn by 50%. The more employees are engaged with charitable giving projects. So overall, when you are giving and you do have a strong charitable giving program, it increases employee engagement by up to 7.5%, increases employee productivity by 13%, reduce employee turnover by 50%, and you can increase revenue by as much as 20%. So there are some very strong numbers behind why charitable giving is so very important.
And I think there's a lot of practical answers to that too, where, you can just really tell a story that really just tells 1,000 words. And last week when we had our day of caring, for example, one of our guys who leads projects he has been leading the same projects at Campfire for 17 years. And it's amazing to see how it really has caught fire with our employees. And not just him, but he's just as passionate as he was 17 years ago when he first started doing it. And that's the thing, it's like he's brought along this big crowd with him too. So I think that all of that just, it just goes to say that that longevity, that meaning. And that's the thing, is like, he told me, he said, some of these experiences, these are the moments that I remember throughout my work career, and we had a couple of retirees come back, and their memories were of days of caring. And I think that just goes to speak to the power of giving.
Absolutely. Are you seeing any impact with when you're talking about employee churn or workforce attraction? How are you seeing that show up?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I don't think it's any secret that that our industry had some rough times over the last 5 years. And so, we're starting to pick up again, but it had been rough for a while. And even when we had employees who would leave, the one thing that HR kept coming back to me and saying is, like, on their exit meetings, the one thing that they say is that they really felt so strongly about the time that they spent with community relations, volunteering, working with giving programs, coming up with projects. Those kinds of things really meant so much to them. And they thought that that was just like a strong part of the company. And conversely, on the other side, all the new employees that they are asking me to onboard, 5 years ago, I would have to explain to them what giving and volunteering in the company looked like. Now they're coming to me and they're saying, we researched you before we even applied for the job. And it was part of the reason that we applied for this job, is that this company's values align with mine. And so I want a company where it feels like home, like it feels like I'm coming home to people that understand me and believe the same things that I do. So, absolutely, Elizabeth, you're spot on, both with attrition and attraction. So,
Well, let's talk a little bit about, for those companies that want to start a giving program or create a giving strategy for their business, but don't really know where to get started. That's really kind of a big part of what we wanted to share today is how you even begin to create a structure for your company. So for me, it starts with identifying your business goals. So really, I mean, a giving strategy needs to align with your company, with your business goals, your target audiences, your customers, your employees, understanding your company values, what's important to your company, but really having some strategic and some smart goals around what you want this program to accomplish. The next thing to think about would be, how much time, money, and people resources are you willing to dedicate to community giving? Whether you have a budget for certain sponsorships or, a volunteer program, how much time are employees allowed to take off work? Do you want to give them paid time off to go volunteer? And then, what kind of supplies? Do you have a budget for supplies or t-shirts? Because I can tell you that employee t-shirts are huge. DJ's laughing. She knows the power of a t-shirt is beyond anything I can actually explain to you. People will do anything to get a free t-shirt. So is that part of your budget for community giving? Annie, do you want to talk about kind of how you go about figuring out what causes to support?
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes you might have a cause that really, naturally aligns with what your company does. And so that's pretty easy. Other times you may just want to, start from, do you have any kind of a history of giving? That's kind of where I started when I started with my job, was like, the company did not have an organized giving program, but they had been giving in some way over the years. And so I kind of did an analysis on that. And then I just reached out to the employees. And I remember at the time that, the company said, if you put out a survey, nobody's going to answer it. And they did. I mean, by the hundreds. And I mean, I got all these like written on the front side and the back side and in interoffice mail, because we weren't doing a lot of email back then, and we didn't do electronic surveys either. So it was all by paper and or phone call. Or I'd get a lot of people who'd call me up and say, hey, I know you're asking about what we care about and what's important to us, and here's what's important to me, and here's why. And as I started to get that stuff in the mail and on the phone, I thought, well, what's important to our company is the voice of the employee. So whatever we do, we need to make sure that that voice is amplified and that that voice has power. And I mean, so I think that there are a lot of times that where it just naturally falls into place that this is something that really resonates with our employees. And then other times you may have to dig a little bit deeper. And so for us, we just came up with 4 different categories. And now we have 5. We've added environment and sustainability over the past few years as our 5th pillar of giving. But what's been really cool is that in every location, that looks different, right? So if we're looking at education, educational challenges or basic needs challenges in Tulsa, Oklahoma might look different than they do in rural North Carolina, and they might look different than they do in Jakarta, Indonesia. But it's still that we're all working out on the same kinds of things. And that's the really cool thing, is that we can tell different stories, but we're working on the same pillars together.
Well, when you're looking at what causes to support, for me, it's important to kind of look at what services and products are part of your business. So are there naturally things that align with that? And then are there certain charities or causes that align with your company values? Because a lot of times tapping into that is very important. Or if it's a smaller company, does the CEO have a personal cause that they want to support? In my company, I deal with a lot of small business owners, and I had a client earlier this year. His son had had a heart transplant as a teenager. And so when it was Organ Donor Awareness Month, he wanted to do a campaign with his company. And so he was offering discounts. He was inviting customers to make a dollar donation with their purchase. And all of that went to a nonprofit where he served on the board. So there are many, many ways that this can, you can determine which causes you want to support based on the size of your organization. In Annie's example, obviously she's got a huge company and the employees are very involved in that. You could have a small business, but figuring out what causes are important to your business.
And Elizabeth, that's a really great point, is like what naturally aligns. And thinking back on a recent conference that I went to with some really big companies and nationally known brands, Mary Kay Cosmetics, traditionally served women. And so and also women were traditionally the people who sold their products as well. So they decided that women's rights was a really key thing for them to go after. UPS, logistics, right? So they came up with a program in Africa where they could help farmers who were disconnected from each other understand when different issues were coming up, like weather-wise or famine-wise, and maybe even connect with each other so that they could share things with their crops, which was something that they never had the capacity to do before. So I think that's another thing, is just like, what are you good at? What really naturally fits with your business? So excellent point, Elizabeth.
Well, we talked a little bit about this. So once you've determined, what causes you want to support, and one of the things I didn't mention is why it's so important for you to have what I call a giving umbrella, and understanding, the 3 to 5 things that you want to support from your business. It not only allows you to say yes to certain programs, but it also allows you to say no. Because I know a lot of times you get stuck with donation requests from companies that don't fit with your business. And so every little league that comes to you for something, and I learned that I hate saying no, but if it doesn't align with your business, it doesn't really align. And so this gives you a way to say no, but this is what we do contribute to. And so if there's something else that we could do, but it allows you that freedom to say, no, I'm sorry, we can't help you, without the guilt.
And it keeps you from being stretched too thin also, so that you can really place that focus where it belongs on things that you know that you can impact and make a difference with.
So once you figure out what those things are that you want to support, the next step is to figure out how you want to support them. And again, this can be as big and robust as you want, or it could be as small and narrow as you want. But whether those are, monetary or in-kind donations, employee matching gifts, pro bono services, in-kind donations, volunteerism really is a huge component of this. But then, depending on what your products and services are there certain things that you can donate? Are there, is there, time and talent you can donate to nonprofit organizations to help them? And then creating your own giving program. If you need something that's a little more structured, you can create something that works just for you. The beauty is that you can tailor these things to exactly what you need them to be. So because I do so much PR and marketing, I really wanted to take a chance to talk to you a little bit about how you would integrate your giving strategy into your overall marketing strategy. And so I kind of, how I would lay this out, I wanted to give you a visual. So you have your annual business goals. And then oftentimes you have your quarterly marketing goals that you're trying to accomplish, as well as what is your giving goal. And then it's creating the strategy on how to help accomplish those goals. And then what are the specific tasks to do that? So let me give you an example. An annual goal could be to reduce employee churn by 50% by the end of the year. Your marketing goal could be that you want to demonstrate corporate citizenship by highlighting, 4 charitable giving activities through an internal and external marketing campaign by the end of the year. Your internal giving goal could be that you want to engage 50 employees in a hands-on volunteer activity with a nonprofit by the end of September. So we use the example of Day of Caring. So the strategy was to volunteer to paint and landscape at a nonprofit organization as part of the United Way Day of Caring in September of 2023. So to accomplish that, obviously, this is a very small task list, but you're going to probably either create an employee committee, or you have someone that's going to coordinate the volunteer activities and supplies, order those company t-shirts for volunteers. I'm sure there are many other tasks as far as coordinating the event, but then also thinking on the branding side. So how are you going to share this? Are you going to incorporate this into social media? Is it going into your company newsletter? Are you sharing photos with employees or posting it on your website? One of the biggest things that you can do, and that I have found it has the most power, is when your employees are sharing your posts on social media. So when they're out there and saying, hey, look, my company is doing this, and look, and we got to volunteer here, and we had so much fun, that is huge goodwill and branding for your organization. Anytime your own employees are talking about what you're doing, it's huge. I had a boss who once told me that no company can afford to be anonymously altruistic, which I thought was actually pretty brilliant, because a lot of companies that are giving for the right reasons don't want to talk about what they're doing. And they're like, oh, well, we don't need to do that. But it's so important, for your customers to see, hey, this company that I support is out here doing good, and they share my values. And, going back to those statistics earlier, increasing brand loyalty, they may pay more for your services because you align with their values in what you're doing with your business. Your employees are excited and productivity goes up. I know Annie's employees are still on that post-volunteer high from Day of Caring. And so I know they're talking about their experience and they're sharing it with their friends and family. These are all ways to incorporate branding into your community giving. So making sure that it is incorporated into your overall marketing strategy is really important.
Elizabeth, you must have been reading my mind because right before this call, I just got a huge barrage of photos from some employees on Teams about some of the exciting things that they were really thrilled about doing. They painted some propane tanks at the camp that looked like giant caterpillars and giant
Oh,
watermelons with a ladybug sitting on top. And one guy brought his daughters, and he said, I haven't had that kind of an experience with my daughters in such a long time. It was just so wonderful when we went away from the volunteer event. I mean, it was something that just keeps giving, and I mean, it was a week ago, for heaven's sake. It's exciting to see how long these things, it just keeps going. The momentum keeps going. Also, to your point about employees sharing on social media, that is such a great and powerful tool. The other wonderful thing is if they can mention the agency that they worked with, then a lot of times our agencies want to come back and say, yes, can we repost this? Can we, tag this and add on to it, and maybe even use it in our story. And so then it just becomes one of those things that just really continues to feed itself, and it's pretty exciting. So yeah, and take it from me, because our company was that kind of a company that said, let's just do the right thing because it is the right thing. Let's not take any recognition. But like in the early days, I know that some of our sponsorships did they actually put our names on some things, and some of our executives and owners were grimacing. But guess what? We had retirees that called us up. We had customers that called us up. We had young employees who said our kids came up and traced the company logo with their hands when they went to this walk. I mean, it was beautiful. It was just like the kind of things that I don't think that they anticipated, because they thought it would be like, oh, you're bragging about yourself. But instead, it was just like, no, it was really creating a company that everybody could be proud of, and we could celebrate those wins together.
absolutely. I am going to do a shameless plug. So one of the things I have done in the past is I've got a series of webinars called What Works. And one of them is how to create a marketing strategy. Everything is available on YouTube, but if you are concerned and really don't know how to incorporate some of what we're talking about into a giving strategy or your marketing strategy, I've got some great information on that in that webinar for you. All right. So Annie, you want to kind of give us an overview?
Sure. So when you're creating a giving strategy, you're really going to want to create those SMART goals, right? You're going to want to make sure that you can accomplish them and that you can measure them. And who is your audience? Who's your target audience? Make sure that you have the time and the money and the resources that you need to dedicate to this. And hey, if you don't, that's no big deal. It doesn't mean you can't get started. It just means scale back. Let's try something a little bit differently. So, what are the causes and the charities you're going to support? And, again, that's also something that Elizabeth and I can help with too, because we have pretty deep contacts, and we know a lot of the needs that are happening in the community. And we can always reach out to somebody like DJ and other friends, and, who have their finger on the pulse of all the needs in our community. And then you're going to create that action plan. What are you going to do between now and the end of the year to make something meaningful happen? So you would also want to create a policy, like what is it that you're going to allow? What is it that you're not going to allow? That makes it so much easier for you, like Elizabeth said before, to say yes and also to say no, so that you can clearly go forward. You're going to research those nonprofits. And again, that's something that you can always reach out for help, because you've got a lot of us who've already done that before. And so we're happy to help with that. Building those relationships will be critical. And then educating the employees and the customers about the giving program, that's the fun part. Everybody's going to want to be part of it. So let's embrace that. I think I get excited about this stuff. This is wonderful.
Well, this is what we're really excited about, because um, a lot of times it's you can talk about how to create a giving strategy, but we actually want to help you with a hands-on workshop to help you actually build your giving strategy. So on October 5th, we're going to be doing a hands-on workshop here in Tulsa to help companies to develop their comprehensive giving strategy. It's going to be something where you can bring in 3 or 4 of your employees to have to work on this project. We're going to have a lot of different activities. But for those that attend, by the time that you leave, you're going to walk out with your giving umbrella. You're going to know what it is that you support. You're going to know how you want to do that next year. And you're actually going to create an action plan for 2024. But rather than wait until next year, we're also going to help you do kind of a holiday of giving campaign. So you'll be able to create a giving campaign for the end of the year. So you're actually seeing real results within your company by New Year's Day. So very excited about this. Annie, what do you want to add about this? What are we?
Oh, well, no, nothing but everything. I just think that this is so much fun because honestly, you know, at the end of the year it seems like it's the time everything ramps up by the end of October, and all of a sudden we have not only nonprofits reaching out to us in schools, but we also have our own employees saying, "What can we do? How can we help? We want to get engaged. We want to get involved." And so, you know, we always have done the angel tree for one thing, but then there are so many other things that we do too. But then, you know, if we're just doing them and kind of taking care of them as time goes by, we're not really telling that story. We're not really celebrating things. And so that's where we came up with our own holiday of giving, you know, projects. And it has been something that has really transformed the way that we tell stories in our business, and also just how intentional we are about creating and identifying what resources do we have of time, talent, and treasure between now and the end of the year to really make something happen. And let me tell you that whether you report that at the end of the year or whether you report that in Q1 in January, when everybody's coming back and going, oh my goodness, it's after the new year. What, my goodness, it's 2024 again. So guess what? We have a great story to tell you. And we've already done this. And what is this year going to look like? And then people really have a lot of energy around it because they know it's possible. Sometimes things seem so pie in the sky, but when you actually record what it is that you're doing along the way and how excited you've got, you know, I mean, and that's the thing too, is that when you have people who raise their hand and say, I want to get involved, there are so many ways to build a program around that that's achievable. And that's actually what Elizabeth and I want to show you, is just like what kind of success we can help you realize with very little investment, but just a lot of heart.
So if you are interested, we'll share information about the workshop, but it will be on Thursday, October 5th, kind of a half day. And just, this is something that I've wanted to do for years and years. And so I'm so excited just to give an opportunity to actually help companies build these strategies, create their plans for next year, and to actually just see the results. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited about this. And then with that, I think I'm going to, well, let me ask, does anyone have any questions before we wrap up today? Okay, well then I'm going to leave you with my very favorite quote, which is, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So I hope that you got some value out of our presentation today, that you have got a better understanding of how you can create your giving strategy. But more than that, I hope that you can join us in October to kind of help you create your own giving strategies. So if at any point you've got questions, please reach out to us. We're happy to talk to you more about it. But thank you so much for your time today. And oh, yes, CJ.
I just have, will we get a recording of this?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so as soon as this is done recording, I will share it this afternoon.
I will also say that I think that getting involved in community is one of the best ways that you can provide leadership development at a very small cost. It's really just allowing your employees to participate and be involved in committees and boards and that kind of thing, and lead a volunteer project. So you know, it's a critically important part of the business in so many ways.
Well, thank you all for your time today. And so, I'll give you a little time back in your day. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of the week.
Thanks, you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.